Good Morning Liberty.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston, and across from me is an empty chair where sometimes Charlie Thompson sits. Today I'm by myself. It's our last live show before the Thanksgiving Day break that I know we are all very excited for because prices on that came down an estimated 5% this year. We'll talk about that later. But we're going to end up doing Dumb Bleep of the Week on a Tuesday, because how do you do a week where there's not a Dumb Bleep of the Week? And it's our last show of the week, last live show anyway, so we're just going to have the live group vote on the dumbest thing that's happened over the last few days, since we just did a Dumb Bleep on Friday. And so I reckon we ought to get into it probably. I think we can do that fairly soon. If it's your first time joining, just so you know, there's normally a second person. But Dumb Bleep of the Week is where we put together the dumbest things that happened over the last week. And then we have the live group, the Fed Haters Club, join gml.com. They vote, and then we figure out what the dumbest thing was. We actually do have 10 submissions on a Tuesday. Imagine what we would have had to do if we would have collected ideas all the way until Friday. I think we're just going to have to do this like every other day, pretty much. But anyway, let's get into some of it. The first one here had a couple people submit this, but we've got Neil deGrasse Tyson on the Bill Maher show over the weekend. And this is someone who, unfortunately, I've always been really excited to listen to. Like anytime he was on Rogan or something like that, I always listened to the episodes. I would listen to his, he's got a podcast or whatever kind of show called Star Talk, I think. And you know, when he's talking about the universe and space and black holes and all that, he's exciting to listen to. But it turns out really smart people or very knowledgeable people in specific fields can still be very dumb when it comes to basic logic and reasoning. So we're going to play a couple videos here of some exchanges that happened. Let me find the first one. Let me get that. I believe in this one we're talking about the person who ran Scientific American, and they end up talking about women and men in sports. And this is a scientist. This is a trust the science guy. This is a data analytics guy. No emotions, just pure logic, reasoning, data, except for when it comes to specific cultural issues, apparently. So let's listen to some of this.
I'm going to tell you. Scientific American, the magazine. I remember when it was around when I was
grew up with it, yeah.
Grew up with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, their editor had to quit. You saw this.
Yeah, I heard about it because she expressed some opinions, right? Yeah.
Okay, sure, but it sure didn't sound scientific. It didn't sound like the person I would want to be running Scientific American.
Okay.
It was a rant on Twitter. Okay, I could read it to you. It's really ugly. You know, I apologize to younger voters that my Gen X is so full of fucking fascists. Okay, I'm not.
Okay, I'm not a gasket right there.
I'm not for.
All right. Yeah.
I'm not for canceling anybody on either side.
Yeah.
So But here's what I think is the scandal.
What?
This is in Scientific American.
Yeah.
Less than a year ago.
Uh-huh.
Inequity between male and female athletes is a result not of inherent biological differences between the sexes, but of biases in how they are treated in sports. That's nuts. And it sure ain't scientific, and it's in Scientific American. And that's why the Democrats lost the election. It's true.
Bill, every 20 minutes on your platform, you come up with another reason why the Democrats lost. You already have the answer. They lost the election. So anything you say
That's
is
not
why
true.
they did it.
First of all, you don't watch this show, so you don't know that. I know you don't, and it's okay. But you talk as if you do, and you fucking don't. And that's okay. Just don't bullshit me. That's the one thing people can't ever do on this show is bullshit me. And that's fine. But I don't say that. I have very good reasons. But engage with the idea here. What I'm asking is, Scientific American is saying, basically, that the reason why an WNBA team can't beat the Lakers is because of societal bias.
What you're saying is not Scientific American says that. An editor for Scientific American says that, who no longer has the job. So don't indict a 170-year-old magazine because somebody.
Okay, this is called Scientific American, and they're printing something
because someone enters the cesspool that is social media and then participates in that exchange. So
why can't you
let's
just
talk about science?
Why can't you just say this is not scientific and Scientific American should do better?
Well, does she still have her job?
No, not because of this. I said the scandal is not her tweet. The scandal,
because that was like a year ago, was it? Which one was a year ago?
I think a year ago, women still couldn't beat men in basketball or any other sport, and it wasn't because of society. You don't see a problem.
By the way, long-distance swimming, women might actually have the advantage.
Okay, my God. Good Lord. So long-distance swimming, women might have the advantage. He refuses to actually talk about the point. Clearly, there is a biological advantage to being a man in many of these sports. This guy is supposed to be a scientist. Why can't he just admit that and say that out loud? He can't, because his political views, his political and cultural views, just muddy all that up for him, and he can't say it out loud. This is the problem with trust the science. You're talking about what Bill Maher kept trying to say, Scientific American. And these are the people that put out the science that you're supposed to believe in and trust blindly. This goes even better when you couple it with another conversation they had about getting second opinions or questioning medical professionals. So you just can't question these people. There's no reason, except for the fact that you just had this person that was running Scientific American who said that there were the differences were cultural reasons between men and women. You can't actually admit that there are biological advantages to being a man when it comes to physical activities. Here's a little bit of that exchange.
So that means we're incapable as a species of truly understanding risk. And this goes to like vaccines, okay? I don't want to like poke the bear here, but what I'm saying is,
the bear believes in vaccines, just being skeptical of all medical interventions, as everyone should.
Well, except 99 out of 100 medical interventions, you're not saying, I need a second opinion. If you have tuberculosis, you don't need a second opinion. If you have polyps in your colon...
It's not close to 99%.
It's easily 99%.
It is not.
If you break a femur, you don't get a second opinion on that.
I agree, but that's not most things that happen to people. Lots of things that happen to people, and I'm thrilled that you don't ever have this happen in your life, and I hope you never do. But trust me, most people at a certain point in their life will need a second opinion.
The second opinion, yes, but that's after you've been through 99 other. I'm trying to put credit back to doctors, where our life expectancy is 3 times what it was 150 years ago, and everyone before 150 years ago
but lower than the rest
organic, and half of them died before they were 35.
Yeah,
science matters.
Of course it does.
But sometimes you don't sound that way. That's what worries me.
Well, actually, you're the guy.
I like how he just tied eating organic and dying at a very early age because of the science. Like, those two things are actually correlated at all. And by the way, he uses tuberculosis as an example. There's like something that has a test, and you test for it, and it shows you that you have it. Okay. All right, that's one thing. But not being able to question the science on things, when I just showed you that previous clip of the people who present you the science on things, and you can't question those people, my God, I'm going to have to not listen to this guy anymore. And that sucks, because I love it when he talks about space, except for later on when he talks about going to Mars and how pointless that whole idea is. I won't even get into that. I want to show you, which I'm sure you saw, this meme that Kyle Kulinski put out there, average Joe Rogan enjoyer. So there's a big field, big crowd of scientists out there. And then down here at the bottom, if you're just listening right now, you're not watching on YouTube, it says a man who saw a YouTube video says, yes, you are all wrong. And they say that's the average Joe Rogan enjoyer. What people don't realize is that scientists are human beings, and they can be corrupted by any other thing that human beings can be corrupted by. One of the really big ones being money. How do you go about getting government grants for things? And then they can also weed out all the people who disagree with them. And then you can whittle it down to saying the scientists all say this, but you got rid of all of the other ones. And so saying that these people are wrong, who are a whittled down list of people who decided that, some of whom decided they were going to follow the money, and the ones who didn't get kicked out of the group that we call scientists. Yeah, it's okay to question those people, because a bunch of those people apparently say that the differences between men and women in sports are for cultural reasons, which is insane. It's absolutely insane. Let's move on to number 2. We'll talk about DEI for a moment. I saw this clip going around of 60 Minutes, and they're talking about the University of Austin. Now, what University of Austin is actually talking about is great. They're talking about looking at merit and excellence, things like that. I can't remember what their I stands for. The way this 60 Minutes interviewer asked the questions and the way that they approach this conversation is just laughable to me, that they just don't get it. I'll show you the clip. They pretend to not get it, by the way. They get it. They understand. I mean, you got 2 white guys here talking to them. It's like, what do you mean by using your brain? What do you mean by the capabilities of your mind? We're talking about a college here. What are you supposed to mean by that? Here's just a little 1-minute clip from this 60 Minutes interview.
As for admissions, UATX swaps DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, for what some call MEI, merit, excellence, and intelligence.
Gender, race, ethnicity, what is the factor of that in your admissions decisions?
We don't take any of that into consideration in admissions. The primary thing that we're interested in is the mind.
Meaning what?
The kind of capacity to think deeply, to answer questions, to challenge norms.
I got to tell you, we did not see a particularly diverse student body.
We are putting resources into finding talent of an intellectual variety. And if you're interested in diversity, I recommend you look at the social backgrounds of our students, at the family circumstances of our students.
High-profile UATX donors include Trump-backing billionaire Bill Ackman, a Harvard grad who vocally criticized his school after October 7th, and Harlan Crow, close friend of conservative Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Critics attack UATX as a right-wing university simply wearing the cloak of free speech.
All right. There's that old clip right there. The fact that this is a news story. This is a news story. This is Dumb Bleep number 2, by the way. That's what we're in right now. The news story is that there is a college who lets applicants in based on their merit and their excellence and their intelligence. They care about the mind. And this guy's like, meaning what? What do you mean by that? And it's a news story. And oh, by the way, you need to tie it to Trump also. This racism here where they're only letting in the best people, you got to tie it to Trump. And the guy's going to make the case for, these guys all have diverse backgrounds. All these people here, I have a diverse background compared to a bunch of the people that are hanging out with us in the Fed Haters Club right now. There's a lot of actual diversity that doesn't just involve the color of our skin, which is a ridiculous way to separate people. You shouldn't separate them based on anything, really, in the first place, unless you're a college and you want to get the best people into that college. By the way, allowing the best people to come into that college means that people have a better time paying off their student loans for that college because they're more likely to go on to bigger and better things. They're more likely to actually complete and get a degree, a worthwhile degree in the marketplace, and be able to actually pay the loans back. Letting people in who wouldn't have otherwise been able to get in there has led to a lot of people not being able to pay off those loans. All right. How about number 3? Now we're talking about EV credits here. This is Dumb Bleep number 3. We are talking about EV credits, which we don't agree with in the first place. Giving people these credits actually, now unless you're just taking it off of what they were going to pay in taxes in the first place, but what they end up doing is they use someone else's money and they give it to someone else. Now Trump, along with Musk and Ramaswamy and Doge, have proposed that they're going to be getting rid of the EV buyer credit nationally, something that came from the Inflation Reduction Act. I believe they're already doing it on a smaller scale beforehand also. So California comes in and says, well, we're going to do our own EV credit. And it's going to include all the EV companies, except for Tesla, the Number one EV company. And by the way, the only EV company that makes cars, that has employees, that provides jobs on a large scale to people in California. So you could say the dumb is for the EV credits, but let's just assume that people are going to do them. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you have the government doing things. They have to separate this out politically now. They don't go for the most efficient thing. You know, what the marketplace, what the buyers, what the consumers have decided is their favorite car, even if they don't agree with Musk politically. I believe it still said 65% of the EVs sold in California are still Teslas. Even if a lot of people don't agree with them politically, they like the cars the most. They think that those are the best things they can get. But instead, California decides to try and help for competition other companies who don't make any cars in California and provide a bunch of jobs to people, just all based on they say it's to promote healthy competition because Tesla has such a large share of these sales. You guys think that's what it actually is? Does anyone believe that whatsoever? No, no one believes that at all. They're doing it for the same reason they said SpaceX couldn't do launches from that Air Force base. I can't remember what it was called. Let's see. I pretty much just summed up everything for you and that whole thing. So that's dumb bleep number 3. Doing EV credits, but then making it political, excluding your political opponents. Wouldn't it be terrible if we had people that were in charge that made decisions based on not liking their political opponents and helping everyone else other than them? They need to not do the credits, but I'm just going to blanket saying that. Don't do the credits, okay? Unless you're taking away money that people are paying in taxes already. How about number 4? Yeah, Vandenberg, that's what it is. Is it space base? Is this a Space Force base now? Is that what that is? Okay, now it's Space Force, which I believe is under the Air Force, but it's a Space Force base, and they don't want SpaceX to do those launches there. That's great. That's a great idea. Not political at all. Not one bit. This clip has been making the rounds for dumb bleep number 4 here. Scott Jennings on CNN. Now, what they're talking about, there's this big narrative going around right now that X has turned into this massive right-wing echo chamber. It led to Trump getting elected. I'll show you Mehdi Hassan's post and the danger of Elon Musk being the number one influencer on one of the biggest sites out there where people get their news. And of course, that's just terrible. You can't have that kind of thing. It was way better, much more fair when it was a left-wing echo chamber and they could control what people could say or do. That was democracy. That was the best thing to do. It actually turns out that the numbers are even now as far as political party affiliation. Actually, there's still a little bit more Democrats than Republicans. It was like 48 to 47. I'll show you the exchange, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have already seen, but he brings this up, and it didn't go well, and it also didn't go well for the host. I can't remember what the host's name is, but he was like, well, here are the facts. She's like, well, that's not true. And he's like, well, it was reported by CNN. Who's your source? CNN, the network that we're on right now. Here's that exchange.
Also, I heard what you're saying about X. I saw a survey this week. It's now the most ideologically balanced user platform.
Scott, stop. It's too early. I just sat down. I've only been here for 2 minutes. You cannot continue to say
the show,
you cannot say that.
So
that's not the case. Who's the source of that?
What I find, we reported it on this network.
It's not accurate, and you know it.
Okay, I'll let you make your statement.
Scott, can I reframe it a different way? Because the site changed radically, right? So whether you think the voices it is somehow more balanced now, that's fine. But no doubt Musk's influence is profound, and that you open it up and now you're there with his opinion, and he is now part of this administration. So does anyone else think that there should be this greater concern about billionaires purchasing media companies?
Okay. Would you be worried if Bill Gates controlled MSNBC?
No, because he's sane.
All right, so first off, they just talked about a concern of billionaires purchasing media companies. And he asked, would you be worried if Bill Gates purchased MSNBC? And they say no, because he's sane. So just to be clear, it's not about billionaires purchasing media companies, as if all of these companies aren't owned by billionaires. It's the billionaires that we like that want to push out what we want. And one of the other co-hosts here or panelists that are here talks about, well, you know, there has been a massive shift. Yeah, the shift is towards it being more balanced, and they don't like that. Here's an actual clip of the CNN report that Scott Jennings is talking about. Now, they're reporting a Pew Research poll. You can see in the screenshot right now that in 2022, pre-Musk, Twitter was 65% Democrat and 31% Republican. And now it's 48% Democrats and 47% Republican. People that are using Twitter for news. So let's listen to that very quick 29-second exchange.
This really gets at it. Look at this. The party ID among those who regularly use X/Twitter for news. Back in 2022, 65% of those who regularly use Twitter/X for news were Democrats. Just 31% were Republicans. Look at where we are today. Just a completely different picture. Now it's basically split between Democrats at 48%, Republicans at 47%. And what I should note, Mr. Berman, is this new overall makeup matches the overall electorate far better.
So that's the problem here. It used to be 65-31 Democrat to Republican, and now it's 48-47, which matches the overall electorate much more closely. And this is the problem everyone is crying about. And it is really funny that she was like, well, that's obviously not true. You know, where did you get that? It's reported by CNN. It's reported on the network that you're talking right now. So I'm glad we got that moment over the last couple days. That was great. That's Dumb Bleep number 4. I did add into this Mehdi Hassan's post talking about Elon. Mehdi says, when the owner of this website, the richest man in the world, the most followed man on Twitter, constantly, daily, hourly, posts again and again to tens of millions of followers that the media lies, that the media can't be trusted, that all media is corrupt and dishonest, you don't think that has a massive effect, not just on trust and polarization in society, but on election outcomes and political messaging, especially when it comes after years of Donald Trump doing the exact same thing? So he's complaining about people saying that the media lies, can't be trusted, that they're corrupt and dishonest. And this apparently is some sort of misinformation or disinformation. It's not just Elon Musk who posts about it all the time to all of his followers. This comes after years of Donald Trump also saying that the media lies and they're corrupt. This is just, instead of looking at those charts we've shown you before from Gallup polls and 31% of America having trust in the media, which is like actually below Congress or right around Congress, instead of looking at that and saying, I wonder if we lie all the time and we should stop it. Instead, they just say, well, they're just getting brainwashed. This is just misinformation. Yeah, sure. You know what? Let's just keep doing that. Sure. Keep it up. I hope they learn nothing, I guess. Well, I sort of wanted them to learn something because it would be nice to live in a more honest and polite society that's focused on truth. But they'll all just lose their jobs. Okay? If Dems and liberals in general don't understand the way in which Musk, Trump, and company have cynically created an impenetrable bubble around their followers, primed them against a reality-based universe, preemptively undermined any negative stories about themselves, then Dems and liberals will never be able to win in terms of narratives or elections. It's key to everything. It's at the heart of everything. You see, that's why you wouldn't have been able to get news from X. You just would have heard MSNBC or people like Mehdi, who used to be on MSNBC, or CNN, or whoever else it is, talking about how Trump was Hitler, talking about how he was going to put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad, how he called Nazis fine people, how he's going to be a dictator on day one. And if you weren't able to crowdsource that information or get fact checks or see community notes or see the alternative viewpoints or the entire clip, not just the one that they showed you on these media channels, you see, they'd be able to win. But now, since people have full access to the information, they're never going to be able to win. Now, I think he's right about that. I think he just might be right, as long as they keep full access to the information. Let's move on real quick to Dumb Bleep number 5. This one's going to have a couple quick tweets about Russia, Ukraine. We got one from Joe Walsh, who admittedly was drunk when he tweeted this, X'd it out to all of his followers. So he says, Friday night tequila tweet. He forgot it's called X, but whatever. He's drunk. Putin invaded Ukraine 33 months ago. F everyone like Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson, and Trump, who blames America and not Putin for that invasion. F the whole MAGA blame America for everything crowd. And by the way, Tulsi is Putin. You can't trust her. Tulsi is Putin. Harry Sison, who I guess we found out is a real person, he says, if you side with Russia over Ukraine, you don't love America. That's a fact. Well, he did say that's a fact. I didn't see a community note on there, so I guess it's been fact-checked. It must be true. You guys know our thoughts on this whole idea. Did you know that it is possible for America to do bad things around the world? That we are, in fact, not the center of the universe? And that we can do bad things, and there are other people who have self-determination and have their own lives and their own agendas and their own hopes and dreams, goals and aspirations. Sorry, switch then to Kamala there for a minute. In the way that they see the world and the way that they want to live. And that it is possible for situations to arise where America did something wrong and made other people mad. And that there's responses for it afterwards. There are consequences for it afterwards. Does anyone know that that's true? Joe Walsh doesn't know that that's true. But it is. It absolutely is. You know, when Ron Paul stood up there on the debate stage and said that we needed to listen to why these people attacked us, that was a very important eye-opening message for a lot of people. Maybe not all the people that are Republicans or MAGA people or Trump himself or whatever. But it sort of spurred a movement. A lot of people got behind him. And of course, that's because he was pro-Taliban and pro-eventually ISIS, and he was pro all of the other terrible people that are out there. Or maybe it's just good to ask why these things happen and not always assume that everything America does is proper. It's sort of a trust the science crowd here with Joe Walsh. Trust the bureaucrats. Trust the state. Trust the party in power if they're Democrats, as long as they're not Trump. Trust the deep state. Trust the CIA. Trust all these people. You can't question them. They would never do something wrong, and it would never provoke a reaction. Provoke. It's a nice word. I like that. I should read a book. I should read a book about that. I'm going to see if there's a book called Provoked, and then I'm going to reach out to the author of that book and see if he wants to come on for an interview. It's going to happen. That's Dumb Bleep number 5. How about number 6? To something that is happening right now, fresh news, and that is tariffs. So, are we fans of tariffs here on this program? No, because I don't like taxes. I prefer the government not have any money at all. I'm a free trade advocate. I do realize that they can be used for leverage to try and get something that you want. I would never want them to be permanent. But Trump has promised specific tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico. This is sort of the newest news over the last day that people are talking about, as if it's some kind of a big shock or whatever. But Donald Trump said Monday he will issue executive orders imposing new tariffs on all imported goods from China, Mexico, and Canada, the nation's 3 largest trading partners, as one of his first acts on Inauguration Day. Now, that's him being a dictator. Trump said the tariffs of 25% on Mexican and Canadian goods and 10% on Chinese merchandise would be aimed at halting an invasion of drugs and migrants into the United States. Quote, this tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long-simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price, Trump wrote in a post on Truth Social. So, time for them to pay a big price. Of course, the issue with tariffs is that this is not a tax bill that you send to a country. and then they pay it when they send you something. And it's a tax bill that the American company that buys from them has to pay. A lot of people have caught on to this. Now, there are the nuanced conversation about tariffs that we really haven't had before. Don't have a ton of time for it today. But I was doing a little bit of reading, saw some posts going on in a Signal chat that I was involved in, and they were saying, yeah, costs are passed on to consumers after a certain point and depending on how much competition there is. So it's not going to be one-to-one unless there's just absolutely no competition for this product. So the very first thing that happens is the company that's buying from that country, they get charged that tariff, and they immediately want to pay less for that good because they don't want to raise their prices because they probably have to compete with other people. So they don't just immediately want to raise their prices. So they might say, well, I'll pay you less for that. And so then it's up to that country that you're buying from, that company and that other country that you're buying from, to say, well, can we take less for this? So there is a way right there off the bat that it could actually hurt the companies in the other country. It just depends on how much competition there is. That's why blanket tariffs, across the board tariffs, it will end up with a bunch of times that it just gets passed directly through to the consumer. The other thing you have to question is, well, okay, I still got to buy it. This country's not going to lower their prices, and I just had to pay 25% more. Can I pass that immediately on to the consumers? You got to ask yourself that. Well, do I have other competition who's getting their goods from somewhere that aren't affected by these tariffs? If I do, then it's going to be tough for me to pass that entire 25% gain on to those consumers. But if this is the only place that we're getting it, if everyone else is buying it from them too, then we can all just decide that we're going to pass it on. And then if, like I said, if you don't have any competition, pretty easy just to pass it on because there's nowhere else to get it. Tariffs, pretty strong relationship, very, very strong relationship between tariffs and increases in prices. Because even if you decide not to buy from that country overseas, and you decide you're going to buy American because it's the same price or whatever, now because of the tariff, it's more expensive than the goods you were buying. Sure, you're buying American, but you are buying more expensive goods than you were buying beforehand. And so, yeah, can equal higher prices. There's a reason you were buying it and getting it cheaper from somewhere else. There's a reason you weren't buying the more expensive product. Or reason we weren't buying the more expensive product. So keep all that in mind. Mexico, here's what they give us. The United States conducts more trade with Mexico than any other country. It imported $475 billion in goods from Mexico last year. It exported almost $323 billion. About 80% of Mexican exports go to the United States, and the vast majority of those last year were manufactured goods, according to the bank-to-bank BBVA. The U.S. imported more than $400 billion worth of manufactured goods, compared with about $20 billion of products from the Mexican agriculture, forestry, and livestock sectors, and about the same from oil, gas, and mining sectors, according to the bank. Those goods included cars and car parts, computers and other electronics, equipment, beverages, medical instruments, and household appliances. So we'll watch and see if prices on those goods go up. We'll pay attention to that. Equal opportunity critics over here at GML. I don't care which president it is that's imposing these tariffs. If it causes prices to go up, we'll talk about it. Canada is the second-ranked trading partner. The U.S. imported more than $418 billion in goods from Canada in 2023 and exported $354 billion. The top goods the U.S. imports from Canada are crude oil and related products such as petroleum gas, vehicles such as cars and car parts, and machinery such as turbines, engines, and construction equipment parts, according to global research firm Trading Economics. We also import billions in plastics, pharmaceuticals, metals like aluminum, iron and gold, wood and paper, and agricultural products from Canada. I have seen firsthand this cause prices to go up because after we put tariffs on Canadian wood, back when Trump was in the first time, the price to frame a house or to do whatever little project your wife has talked you into went up quite a bit immediately afterwards because we get a whole heck of a lot of wood from Canada. And it takes a whole heck of a lot of wood to build all the houses that we have in the United States. You can make arguments for why this is a good bargaining chip to try and get these countries to do what you want, and I understand those arguments. You might not have any others. I don't want to threaten to go to war with these people. But you also can't escape the argument that it's going to cause an increase in prices, and we might end up seeing that. Now, for all the dumb associated from our side with tariffs, there are many, many dumbs associated with the other. For instance, like the Mexican president telling Trump that tariffs are going to worsen inflation and kill jobs. She comes out. She says this is going to cause inflation to go up and it's going to kill jobs in your country. Tariffs are terrible. And she also comes out and says, we are going to put tariffs on U.S. goods. Do you see the contradiction there? She says, you put tariffs on us, it's going to cause inflation to go up. It's going to kill jobs in your economy. And in retaliation, we're going to do the same thing to our consumers. I mean, all of our production workers. This here is called a tariff war. And it's pretty ridiculous. It's like both people threatening to hurt themselves in order to get the other person to do what they want. And that's pretty much what we have. I guess we're getting them to hurt themselves. So maybe it works. Maybe we can get them to hurt themselves more than we hurt ourselves. And at the end of the day, they got hurt more than us. But we both got hurt. Unless they give in to whatever the Trump demands are having to do with the border and fentanyl and all that. You know, you could just legalize drugs and get rid of the fentanyl problem, but whatever. We're not going to do that. So someday, maybe someday. And there's also more dumbs from the liberal lefties. The Democratic Socialists, the Marxists, who all of a sudden realize that taxing American companies leads to increases in prices. This is a very frustrating one to me because these are people that push for increased taxes on companies for like their job. It's their job to go out there and tell people that we need more taxes on corporations because they're evil and greedy, and the American working people, they deserve to get that money trickled back down to them via the government. They don't want it trickled down via the corporation. They want it trickled down via the government, trickle down taxation. And now all of a sudden, what's weird is when Trump comes out and he's like, oh, I'm going to tax that company. All these people are like, well, that is going to cause prices to go up. Like Nina Turner, who responds to this news story we just talked about, who says cost of goods will go up. I think you probably know plenty of Nina's past history of tweets that we have talked about on this show, but she is not afraid to tell you that we should tax corporations. Just not this way. Not this one right here, because it's the one that Trump wants to do. Now, when Trump wants to decrease taxes for corporations in a different way, they'll say that that's a handout to the rich and it's not going to help any of the workers in America and all that kind of stuff. That's just a rich, evil handout to those people. And not that it could help the cost of goods go down. They won't talk about that. Like Robert Reich, who says, just a reminder, tariffs aren't paid by other countries. A tariff is basically a sales tax, raising the price of almost everything you buy. It's also regressive, taking a higher percentage out of the paychecks of working people than out of the wealthy. So he combines it into a sales tax here. So a tax on this company is going to lead to increases in prices. Thank you, Professor Reich, for telling us. And Representative Don Beyer. I'm going to call him Beyer. Representative Don Beyer. This one was great because he has spent a lot of time talking about taxing corporations. He says Donald Trump's first act as president will be to intentionally raise prices for the American people. Going to tax the corporations. It's going to raise prices. How about some of his past tweets, like this one in 2022, where he says the Republicans' biggest bill was a tax cut that they promised would help the middle class? It's extremely clear that the real winners were the rich and the corporations, some of the wealthiest of whom now pay a lower overall tax rate than the middle class. And of course, in these news stories he posted, he is talking about how the rich benefited more in real dollar terms. Yes, if you were to give the rich a 0.1% tax reduction and people who pay almost no taxes a 50% tax reduction, given their logic, it would still benefit the rich more than it benefits the middle class or the lower class. He also said In 2022, the Senate just passed by far the biggest and most important climate bill in American history. It also lowers costs of health care and life-saving medicines. It's paid for by making the most profitable corporations pay a minimum tax. On Friday, we will take it up in the House. So this time, by the way, taxing the corporations is good because they're going to use the money to pay for these other things. So that's really cool. That's good stuff. He also said, despite raking in record-breaking profits, many of the country's largest corporations pay zero or less in federal taxes. It's time they paid their fair share. The corporate minimum tax would make the tax code fair and raise significant revenue to help pay for the Build Better Act. Of course, it wouldn't lead to price increases, would it? That would be crazy. And how about one more from him? House Republicans just spent months threatening to wreck the economy. They said it was about deficits, but today they're pushing a new tax scam bill to cut taxes for corporations and the rich with little help for working people. More of the same failed trickle-down economics. Well, I thought that when taxes were higher on corporations, that equaled higher prices for everyone. And so, therefore, it would seem that cutting the taxes for the corporations could equal lower prices for everyone. I feel like that point was made several times when talking about tariffs, but they will not apply to income taxes because that gets into their Marxist class struggle that they all want to talk about and the evils of rich people. And so they cannot talk about lowering income taxes to try and help people with prices. They can just call a tariff a sales tax, which it almost directly is, depending on what kind of competition the companies have. Let's move on to Dumb Bleep number 7. That was number 6. It's just called Tariff Wars. Tariff Wars. I don't like any taxes, by the way. I understand you can use them strategically, but I don't like it when the government forcefully takes money from people. I still don't. I don't care what argument we make for it. It's still a bad thing. I don't care who the person is. All right, number 7. How about the labor secretary pick? We've already talked about this week. I probably yelled about it a whole bunch yesterday. Lori Chavez DeRemer for labor secretary, who is one of 3 Republicans to co-sponsor the PRO Act. I called it the most anti-free market and private property rights piece of legislation I've seen since FDR was rolling around in the White House. The PRO Act does to the free market and private property rights what the Patriot Act does for Americans' privacy. That's what the PRO Act is. It effectively nullifies right-to-work laws in 27 states, implements California's ABC test to reclassify independent contractors as employees, threatening the entire gig economy, forces companies to allow union organizing activities on their property, forces companies to give unions all of the names and addresses of their employees so they can contact them for organizing, and bans the companies from replacing striking workers, along with like 1,000 other pages of terrible things. Yikes. Really bad. I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. I expected some bad picks from Trump, but this one actually surprised me, and I don't know why. I expected bad people. I didn't think we were going to get a libertarian foreign policy expert in there for Secretary of State or something like that. I never thought that was going to happen. I knew there'd be some bad picks. I saw first time around. But this person for labor secretary, the PRO Act, really? If this moves on, that's going to cross a line. And I'll say at that point, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, if this PRO Act somehow gets pushed by Trump, by this administration, gets pushed through Congress, or effectively through regulations, that's a loss for the Libertarian Party strategy. Because that's how much I care about people's private property rights. It even extends to people who own businesses. That's crazy. It even extends to people who own businesses. Those evil, greedy, terrible people. All right, number 8. Oh, we got a fun video here. So this lefty, she got her phone stolen. This was posted in the live group. I appreciate that getting sent over. She got her phone stolen. She tries to get the phone back from the homeless person who stole her phone by making a Marxist class struggle argument with the homeless guy about how she's not one of the evil rich people, and if you want to steal from them, that's totally fine, but she's a nice, honest person. And here's 20 seconds of that. I think it was a little tough to understand the video. The audio wasn't very good, but let's play it.
Basically, I am not, if you stole it from rich scum, by all means keep it and sell it, but I'm like a really, and I want to say, if you guys come up with my iPhone, I will give you more than, I'm an honest person.
All right, so I don't know if you can understand it, but if you stole it from rich scum, that's totally fine. If you stole it from the rich scum, but she, as a good, honest person, she's not one of those evil rich people. All right. The problem is, in relation to the homeless person who doesn't have anything, she is an evil rich person. And that's how this whole thing plays out. It averages down the entire society. You might kill all the rich people, and then turns out you're the next rich person in line. What about the income inequality or the wealth inequality between you and the homeless person that you're talking about? It's astronomical. It's infinity X. That's how much it is. So you are an evil rich person. Look at all the things you have. Look at the nice boots you got on, the nice phone that came from space that you're holding, the nice jacket you've got. Terrible. Terrible. Bougie, bougie, bougie. That's all I see right there. All right. I did want to respond. I did see, let me see here. Yeah, Magoo said I'm going to wait until they actually get in power to freak out. I am too. That's why I'm saying if they do this, that's going to cross the line for me. Went back to the labor secretary thing. I'm very disappointed about the nomination because it opens up that whole can of worms. And so for me, it's if they end up going down that road, I'm going to be really mad about it. You know, that's I believe, I think, yeah, that was yesterday. Today's Tuesday, so that was yesterday, where I talked about not freaking out until people actually get into power and see what they actually do. What's the difference between their rhetoric and what they actually end up doing? So that's number 8. Let's stay along the same lines of dumb lefties real quick. For number 9, Andrew Yang gets his just one number just for this one tweet that he had. Andrew Yang, he ran for president one time and lost in the primary. People liked him, though. I mean, he seems more honest than a lot of other people out there. He's an honest Marxist. He's an honest idiot. He says if Doge were to return any money it saved to the American people, a la UBI, it would immediately become the most popular thing anyone has ever done. So those are words from a guy who just don't get it. We ain't got no money. All the stuff that they cut are going to be cuts that come off of our deficit, money that we are borrowing, money that we are printing, okay? And this guy's idea is that, hey, if you do end up cutting this much money out of the budget, you know what you should do? You should give it away to people. But the problem is the money they're cutting is money that they were going to borrow or print or tax away from people. Although income taxes are paying an increasingly smaller amount of the money the government spends. So he wants to borrow that money to do the UBI. Instead of, I don't know, crazy idea. You just don't spend the money. You don't borrow the money. Or if you got to a balanced budget, which they're not going to do. Or if you got to a balanced budget, you just didn't take the money from people. That's another crazy idea. Yeah. Yeah, Costco, he's making us look bad. You know what I mean? By us, I mean me. By me, I mean Asians. So, all right, let's move on to number 10, a nice, fun, quick one for you, because we're heading into Thanksgiving. I called this one Thanksgiving Break. Frank Lund's out there. He's a pollster. He talks to people, knows what they want, knows what they need. Saw a lot of Biden people dunking on this, or dunking with this. They're dunking on others with this information. And this very important information that I want everyone to keep in mind this year, to be thankful for. Please be thankful that the average cost of Thanksgiving dinner has dropped 5% since last year, the lowest since 2021. How about that? Estimated that $58.08 for a 10-person gathering. I got some questions about that. I want one single person who goes out there and provides this meal to their family of 10. Turkey, cranberries, sweet potatoes, carrots and celery, green peas, pie shells, cube stuffing, dinner rolls, pumpkin pie mix. You got to get some whole milk, and you got to get some whipping cream. And you're going to have to get enough to serve 10 people for $58. Now, first, there's two dumbs here. Number one, it's still up a bunch from where it started. This was around like $47-ish pre-COVID. Okay, 48, something like that pre-COVID. You go to like Trump's last year in office, something like that. Okay. And now it's down to 58 from its high, which was over 60 in 2022. But it's true that it did, this specific calculation decreased by 5%. So let's all be happy. I want to be thankful. I want to be thankful for that just like you guys are. But I do question whether or not you're going to feed 10 people on $58. I'm going to poll my family members, and I'm going to poll you guys that are in the group right now. If you're going to feed 10 people, what do you guys think it would cost? Realistically. At the grocery store you always shop at, let's say you're going somewhere to $5.80 a person. That's what it is, for sure. Clark says $200 for 10 people. Yeah, that's going to be too. And this is the dumbest thing, and I didn't go to how they break this down and they talk. Do you guys imagine what the portion sizes are? Talking about a 16-pound turkey, and they're going to feed 10 people with that? That's not a whole lot of turkey for 10 people. You got to be assuming that not everyone is eating at this table. I didn't know we made it that far into communism, but I think there's a lot of people who aren't going to have any food. It might be a family of 10, but I think you're only going to feed like 3 or 4 of them with that amount. All the ad calculations, that's what it is. 150 might be a reasonable number there. Could do that. I think anywhere between 150 to 250 for 10 people. I'll ask, because I'll be eating with probably around 10 people or so later in the week. I'll see what was spent on Thanksgiving. We'll see what they spent on that. I think it's going to be slightly more than that. All right, let's get the votes in. Let's go do that. We'll go back over what these things were. We had number 1, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Number 10, DEI, University of Austin. Number 3, California EV credit. Number 4, CNN, fake news CNN. That had to do with X being more evenly split among partisan lines now than it used to be, and that's bad, I guess. Number 5, the comments on Russia and Ukraine, mainly from Joe Walsh in that one. Number 6, the tariff wars. Number 7, Trump's appointment of Chavez to the Department of Labor. Number 8, that liberal activist who decided that it's fine to steal from rich people, but not me. Not me. Unfortunately, she is rich when compared to those people. Andrew Yang, who says we should cut all of these programs and then we should still borrow that money and print it and give it back out to people. Probably spiking inflation like crazy when you do that with that UBI. Number 10, 5% off Thanksgiving. I love it. That's good stuff. All right, everyone who's hanging out with me right now, go to the Dumb Bleep of the Week voting channel. Get your votes in. Get your votes in while I tell everyone to tell your friends and your family members over this Thanksgiving break that there is a podcast. There is one podcast to rule them all, and that is Good Morning Liberty. And most of the time, they have 2 people, not just one. Keep that in mind. Most of the time. Like 85% of the time, something like that. We also got great interviews that come out every weekend from Josh Martens. Go check out Martens Minute if you want to do that. You can join the Fed Haters Club so you can throw in submissions for Dumb Bleep of the Week. I'll give you more warning next time that there's going to be a Dumb Bleep of the Week on Tuesday and on Friday. That way you guys can put in your submissions. You can do that every single week and vote for Dumb Bleep of the Week and throw in your own submissions, and you can chat with us during the show. You've heard me chat with the people in the Fed Haters Club many times throughout this show. That could be you. You could be famous just like those people. Just like Magoo and Costco, Jake. All these fine people out there, Emmy and Eve, they're just getting famous. Name checking them every day. That's why they're all here. Let's see. What are we going to choose? We're getting very split here, y'all. Let's get some of those. Looks like we're going to weed out. There we go. I see some people pulling votes. If you voted for the California EV credit, pull that vote and stick it on another. We're going to do this ranked choice style right now. So we're going to cancel out Dumb Bleep number 3, remove that vote, place it somewhere else. What do we got after that? Let's see if we end up with a tie after that vote moves. I know, it's difficult. Thanks for moving it to a different one that's also not in there. That's good. All right, going once, going twice, going 3 times sold to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Dumb Bleep number 1. That hardly ever happens that Dumb Bleep number 1 wins. That means it really stuck in people's minds, and it was especially dumb. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. By us, I mean me and the Fed Haters Club. Join gmail.com. I hope everyone has a fantastic Thanksgiving break. Remember, it's more important to stay in contact and stay close to your family than it is to win a political argument with your family. Just slowly manipulate them over time. Just little bitty stories. It's your job not to win a specific argument and belittle someone to the point that they're just embarrassed, because then they're going to get defensive and then it's going to get heated. It is your job to slowly manipulate these people with small little tiny facts about how you cannot trust the federal government no matter who is in charge. That is why your biggest goal must be taking away all of the powers that government has over everyone. That way you won't be so scared about Trump being the president, and people on the right won't be so scared about Gavin Newsom being the president or AOC. My God. When I talk about a president AOC, don't you want to make your number one goal taking powers away from the federal government before something catastrophic like that happens? So that's your number one goal. You sow distrust. You plant the seed of distrust in your family's minds, not in you, but in the federal government. And in the idea of majoritarian democracy itself, it's tyranny, okay? So that is your goal, not to win a specific argument, but to plant the seed of distrust in these evil, terrible, warmongering thieves that run our lives every single day. Okay. So be thankful. Have a happy Thanksgiving. That's what you need to do. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to see you on Monday when we return. Until then, have a good Thanksgiving break and a good morning, Liberty.